Joining me now, our friends Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor at Bloomberg Opinion and MSNBC political analyst. Also, Alexi McCammon, host of the In Sync with Alexi podcast and an MSNBC political analyst. Welcome, guys. Tim, you wrote about this a few days ago, saying if Trump was not at the center of the action, it's doubtful the parade would have taken on such extravagant and imperial dimensions. Do you expect more Republicans to come out against it after the fact?
No, I think if the Republicans were serious about criticizing this as an unnecessary, unusual, and damaging display of military force, while there's an actual enforcement action going on in Los Angeles, they would have done it long before this took place. And even Rand Paul, who I credit for trying to criticize it, in the clip said he thinks the president doesn't mean anything wrong by what he's doing. But what does the president mean by engaging in a parade like this? It's self-congratulatory. It's a display. It's a military flex while he's sending the Marines and the National Guard into the streets of Los Angeles. And it is the kind of parade that we're used to seeing in authoritarian regimes in countries like China and Russia, not the U.S. And I think Trump was in touch with all of those things, and he did exactly as he intended.
Lexi, do you think Donald Trump achieved what he wanted with the military parade, especially since it happened against the backdrop of these huge protests across the country?
Yeah, you saw some of his comms folks tweeting out and trying to say that there were 200,000 plus people attending and that it was a huge success. And, there are varying reports and videos that kind of show otherwise, that maybe the planning wasn't done up to par to even encourage that many people to come. Folks weren't even really that interested in going at the scale that maybe they had thought. The weather wasn't as nice, so maybe that had something to do with it. But also, to your point, Alex, there were over 2,100 cities that had planned anti-Trump protests, dubbed No Kings protest, because of the way that they feel Trump is moving toward this authoritarian leadership that they're not used to seeing in America. And this military parade, as much as he wanted it to be about him and the strength of America as a country and the American military, it really comes at a terrible time for the country. It comes at a bad time globally, and at a time when folks across the country are deeply unhappy with how he's using the military against his own citizens in ways we haven't seen before.
Yeah, Tim, this contrast between the two events, this split screen America, how do you assess what the country saw play out?
Well, I think that the country has been anticipating Donald Trump doing exactly what he did. At least his critics and the people who didn't vote for him worried about the fact that he would try to expand the office of the presidency into such an authoritarian and an imperial corner that at some point he would simply use the military against his own citizens, which has now happened. That's no longer a theoretical case. He's done it. He's empowered by a court, for the most part, that has given him great leeway as president to act as he chooses. His administration has invoked various emergencies, contrived or overemphasized, in order to give him the latitude to impose tariffs, deport undocumented migrants, or put the Marines into Los Angeles. And I suspect he'll continue to do so. And I think Americans have to think about what a very overt and direct threat this is to civil society and democratic norms.
Did these events, Alexi, separately serve to divide America more acutely, or was it a healthy reflection of differing opinions? And how much weight do you give to concerns that the president's use of the military is not in line with its real purpose?
No, I think if anything, I'm almost heartened to see that people still feel comfortable enough under this second Trump term to protest and continue exercising their First Amendment rights, to continue expressing their dissent at what sometimes feels like a political stress test on the American people of how far the Trump administration is willing to go this time and how many norms they're willing to bust. especially when, as you just mentioned, the court is relatively friendly to them. And anytime they stand in their way, Trump folks seem to go further in proposing something to go against them. So I think it's healthy to have this kind of protest and demonstration. Of course, we don't want anything to be violent, but for the most part, what we've seen is folks really just trying to make their voice heard and to say that we're not okay with these ICE raids and the way that immigrants are being treated in this country.
Tim, I want to have you put your eyes on this list very quickly. Trump's latest financial disclosures reporting over $600 million in income last year, more than $57 million coming just from the Trump family crypto business. And that does not include his meme coin. That was released in January this year. But the income breakdown lists how much he made on merch. $3 million from his coffee table book, $2.5 million from sneakers and fragrances, $2.8 million from Trump watches, $1.3 from Bibles, over $1 million from guitars. What stood out to you, Tim?
Well, how much on that list, Alex, is possibly just garbage, that particularly the guitars, that he's willing to slap his name on because somebody walks in the door and wants to take advantage of the fact that the man who's sitting in the Oval Office doesn't mind degrading the brand value of both the White House and the presidency by slapping his name on anything anybody will pay him a fee for. But the thing I think to really keep our minds focused on is the larger ticket items like crypto. Donald Trump is putting the federal government's powers behind the substantiation of crypto trading, platforming, and as an asset. He is moving the regulatory apparatus in the direction of supporting crypto while his family members have investments both in tokens and in exchanges and other parts of the architecture of the crypto business. And it is a raw financial conflict of interest and another measure of how far we've fallen, I think.
Okay. Tim and Alexi, always good to talk with you both.